Lately, Riot has been pretty awesome at pushing the lore of League of Legends forward, be it through new champion releases or updates tied to what is happening in the world. But although these world-building updates touch every corner of Runeterra, out of all the places we know about, Noxus got by far the most lore. It almost feels like everything eventually circles back to Noxus, be it the new champion release, or the other new champion release, or the Ionian update, or the demonic update, or even the upcoming new champion release. In short, if you are a Noxus fan, you should be happy about its lore. But interestingly, this week, Riot gave us even more Noxian lore candy, since they released a story that explains what it was like after Swain seized Noxus. In case you forgot, here is the TLDR version of the story that led up to that. Before any of the present stories happened, Noxus was ruled by a tyrant called Boram Darkwill. Normally, he probably wouldn't be an insane tyrannical ruler, but since LeBlanc has been in the Immortal Bastion ever since, and even before the fall of Mordekaiser, of course she was whispering into Darkwill's ears, and she slowly made him go mad. In the lore, these maddening whispers were vague, but we know that LeBlanc promised him that he would find immortality in the lands of Ionia. And since Darkwill was getting old and fragile, being young and strong forever sounded like a no-brainer. And so, that's how the war between Noxus and Ionia started. The Noxian citizens were told that they were traveling to Ionia so they could make Ionia part of the Noxian Empire, so that both nations could be stronger. What the citizens weren't told is that the Noxian military had a saying, and I quote, "Kill them until they are family." So even though the Noxian soldiers thought they were conquering Ionia so that their nation could be stronger, secretly, the real reason this invasion happened was because Boram Darkwill wanted to be immortal. Now, while this was happening, Swain got into the military after he exposed and executed many different members of the Black Rose, which was a cabal organization that corrupted Noxian nobles from the shadows. In the military, Swain got his reputation for securing a foothold in Shurima. But there he realized that Noxus wasn't actually trying to help the surrounding nations by taking them into the Empire. It seemed more like Noxus was just greedy, and they were only conquering lands for some magical relics. From the shadows, LeBlanc noticed that Swain was being suspicious. And so she whispered to Boram Darkwill to send Swain into the Ionian front lines, where he would surely die. Now, although at the Battle of the Placidium, Swain's knee was shattered and his arm was cut off by a certain individual, he did not die. Instead, in his final moments, a raven came down to feast on his body. And in the raven's eye, Swain saw a vision. He saw reflections of the evil strangling the heart of Noxus. A Black Rose, the Pale Woman, and her puppet Emperor. This made him realize that not only were there more cultists hiding in Noxus, but that also these cultists sent him here to die. All of these visions didn't happen in his mind or in the mind of the Raven. There was something more. It was the power the cultists of the Black Rose have been seeking, the demonic eyes blazing in the dark. Swain learned that this ancient entity was preying upon the dying and consuming their secrets. It even attempted to consume his own. But as Swain stared into the darkness, he saw something even it could not. A way to wield it. Unfortunately, the story doesn't tell us how he accomplished this. But that day, Swain somehow tricked that demon, and they struck a deal which allowed him to use it as a weapon. After this, with the demon at his side, and with visions of what was really happening in Noxus, Swain returned to the Immortal Bastion. And in a single night, he crushed Boram Darkwill in front of his followers, and he destroyed the throne. Swain knew that the Pale Woman would be able to manipulate the ruler of Noxus, and so, instead of becoming a new leader himself, Swain established the Triforix. In other words, he made it so that Noxus would always have 3 leaders at once, so that even if one got corrupted, the others would still overpower them. And each leader would represent one pillar of the Noxian strength: vision, might, and guile. Now, as this was happening, there was another storyline going on which will be briefly mentioned in today's story. You see, one of Boram Darkwill's loyal followers was Darius, He was a soldier capable of winning nearly every battle. Eventually, Darkwill named Darius the Hand of Noxus, which made Darius popular even among common citizens. Then Darkwill sent Darius to the borders of Freljord to expand Noxus north as well. But after years of slaying Winter's Claw's barbarians with no real progress, Darius started to feel like this war in the north was pointless. And so he returned back to the capital where he demanded reconsolidation in the military. But that's where he learned that Boram Darkwill died, and his place was taken by Jericho Swain. Now, as the Hand, the noble houses expected Darius to avenge Darkwill's death. But Darius never swore loyalty to Darkwill. He was loyal to Noxus himself. On top of that, Darius learned that Swain was supported by many allies, including his own brother Draven. And because he would never go against his own brother, that's how Darius joined Swain's side, and that's how he became one of the three leaders. Now that should be all the information you will need to really understand what I'm about to show you. But if you remember some other Noxian stories, you may find even more lore candy. For example, pay attention when the story mentions how only the noble houses who supported Swain got to keep their goods. Because from the Sisterhood of War storyline, you may remember that Merit was once a noble, but her family lost everything. Maybe that's why. But that's enough for the introduction. So now, without further ado, let's have a look at what it was like when Boram Darkwill died, as is explained in the story, Proclamation of the Triforix. Citizens of Noxus, I bring word from the capital. It is time for celebration. The Hand of Noxus is returned, and stands with our new Grand General. With the noble houses united behind them, the new age of our glorious empire begins now. Let it be known that on this day, from distant Shrima to the shores of Ionia, the countless wars initiated by Boram Darkwill have been ended. No longer will our treasuries be drained in pursuit of victories that no one can truly promise. No longer will our brave warriors spend their lives needlessly and without gain. Noxian gold and Noxian blood, these are the treasures that Jericho Swain has pledged to return to you, the people. While on campaign in the Northlands, mighty General Darius received orders to stand down. Rather than meekly accept this edict, he marched back to the capital with all his war hosts, for the duty of the Hand of Noxus is first and foremost to the Empire itself, and not to whomever shall sit upon its throne with the passing of years. It is right and proper that he would question these orders, and the authority by which they were issued. Let it be known that General Darius met with General Swain. Let it be also known that Darius was satisfied that the coup against Boram Darkwill was just and legal, and that Swain's intentions were for the good of all Noxus. Long live Grand General Jericho Swain, saver of the Empire. Under the protection of Darius and his war hosts, representatives from all noble houses have met to hear Swain's plans for the future of Noxus. Those who have sworn themselves and their houses to him in perpetuity have received full pardons for any prior wrongdoing or opposition they may have offered. These men and women are proud and honorable servants of the Grand General and are not to be harmed. In his boundless wisdom and mercy, he has also granted clemency to those who refuse his benevolence. They have a full 7 days to conclude their affairs within the Empire, surrender their lands and titles, and depart Noxus forevermore. Any who choose to remain in defiance will forfeit their lives, with public reckonings to recommence in Noxia Arena 3 days thereafter. Henceforth, let it be known that each and every Noxian shall be treated equally, and on the merit of their own ability and strength. Furthermore, let it be known that Jericho Swain and the noble houses are committed to ending the decades of incompetence and nepotism that plagued Darkwill's rule. But the former Grand General was not an evil man, and Swain would not have him remembered as such. Rather, he was a weak man, manipulated from behind the scenes by others. Yes, friends, there is a corruption at the heart of our great empire. For centuries, this corruption has grown, blooming like a pleasant flower in plain sight, while its roots twist and spread in the darkness beneath. No more, friends, no more. Jericho Swain will destroy any who seek to exploit Noxus for their own secretive gains. He will tear out this corruption, this blighted and thorned rose, root and stem. Every one of its agents and allies are hereby named enemies of the Empire, and all good citizens are obliged to do them harm, if they are able. Together we shall prevail, let none be above suspicion. Before Boram Darkwill, these same sinister forces puppeted even the greatest kings and champions of the Noxidae, all the way back to the Rune Wars. Indeed, our beloved Grand General has heard the fears of the noble houses, that if any could fall to such corruption, then why not him also? To that, henceforth, he has decreed that Noxus shall not be ruled by any single individual, but 3. He draws upon the legacy of the greatest among our old tribes, the vision of the Noxidae, the might of the Noxcry, the guile of the Noxidae, to create a Triferix Council, whose members will eschew any throne and embody the same principles of strength that have ever allowed Noxus to triumph over its foes. Finally, let it be known that after much consolidation with his dear friends among the nobility, the Grand General has reconciled with the leaders of the assassin guilds. Alongside Swain and Darius, they will find a place on the council prepared for them, maintaining a faceless representative to protect the Empire against even the most insidious threats from within. Go forth, citizens! Carry these words and proclamation to all. The greatest years of Noxus lie yet before us, and we shall rise as a single people, united in purpose and glory once more. A quick note, the Faceless mentioned at the end here is the 3rd member of the Triferix. For the longest time we thought that this would be LeBlanc, because for a very long time, LeBlanc was a mysterious woman that never showed her face, which fit the description of this 3rd person really well. However, recently it was confirmed that this faceless person is not LeBlanc. Up until now, it was only confirmed through Twitter and other channels. But now we have it finally confirmed on Universe. Therefore, now it is canon. Anyway, at the end of the story there is also a bit that summarizes all the changes to the Noxian Empire. Archivists Note. In spite of the inspirational and consolatory promises contained in these official pronouncements, within a single year, the Triferix had completely changed the political landscape of Noxus. Imperial governorship and military commissions were no longer inherited, but bestowed through official channels. All personal wealth was to be declared and verified, and hefty taxes imposed on any gold or silver not held in trust by state banks. Finally, it became illegal for any citizen to be owned as chattel by another, and unauthorized sale or transfer of the same was made punishable by death. Effectively, Jericho Swain courted the noble houses to gain a foothold within the assassin guilds, then systematically dismantled the power structures that had supported them for almost 1,000 years. Though the full repercussions of this remain to be seen, it is likely that many nobles have been driven into alliance with his clandestine enemies, and eventual rebellion. And that is it for this story. I don't really have much to say about this one. It's just another piece of cool Noxian history. Although it once again showed us who are the real bad guys on Runeterra. According to this, Swain is giving to the poor, he bans slavery, and he's executing racists. While Demacia is still Demacia.